Hello and welcome to another episode of the Fully Charged Plus podcast. This is going to be a great episode. You're going to love it. It's absolutely amazing. It's absolutely full of data. Just trying to be succinct. Sometimes I get a bit waffly. I know that. Before we start though, I just want to talk about just the best company in the whole universe. Not that silly. That's a silly thing to say, but a really, really important company that are making amazing products in the UK for the UK energy market. Now, I know a lot of our listeners are spread all over the world, but the good thing is that a lot of these products are becoming available all over the world. So I'm talking about My Energy, who are the sponsors of this podcast, and we're hugely grateful to them for supporting us so that we can make this podcast, to talk to the amazing people we're going to be talking to today. Some of the things that My Energy have done in the last few years are just breathtaking. They've really been a huge success story. They've grown from a very small company to quite a big one, and they're growing still. They make, I'm going to hone it down to 3 essential products that I have in my house, that I have, installed and I have paid for, and they're my things. And that is the Zappy charger, which is the first thing that I came across with them. The Zappy charger is very simply an electric car charger you put on your wall, inside or outside, doesn't matter, it's weatherproof. And what that has essentially, I'm simplifying this right down, 3 settings. It has fast, which means it will just use all the energy it can to charge your car as quickly as it possibly can. It can come from the grid, it can come from your solar panels, it can come from anywhere. Any feed in to your house, it will use that as fast as it can. It then has eco, which I have to say I don't use, but eco will tend to use electricity when it's at its cheapest and when it's at the least impact. So it won't use the maximum amount straight away. It will charge your car over a longer period of time, might take longer, but at least you're using the cheapest and cleanest electricity available. The one that I use a lot is Eco++. Really simple. I can either set this on the actual car charger or from an app, from the My Energy app, and then the car will only charge on solar, and it won't take electricity from anywhere else. So if it's sunny, it's putting electricity into your car. If a big cloud goes across the sky and your level of solar generation really plummets, it won't charge the car. It'll stop. It'll wait till there's more sun, then it'll charge it. And what's amazing is solar panels, the amount of energy they're producing goes up and down all the time, constantly, even on a very sunny day it doesn't. But if there's a bit of cloudiness, like today, there's a bit of cloud, sunshine, bit of cloud, sunshine, the car will charge at an amazingly low rate. So it does keep charging. I have added tens of thousands of miles range to my cars using the Zappy charger and solar panels, i.e. free fuel, just saying. The next one is the Eddy. And I forget, so the first one I see regularly, the Zappy. It's on the wall in my garage. I see it every time I go and look at the car. The Eddy is hidden in a cupboard. I don't even see it. I forget Eddy's in there. So Eddy is just simply a solar power diverter for free water and space heating using excess energy from your PV or wind turbine. So that is what it does. It's registering where the electricity is coming from, what the source is, and then it sends it to whatever is appropriate. So in my house now, it is hot water and central heating. So everything's electric. So it can send excess power into my heat battery, which means I can then use that heat later on in the day when electricity is very expensive. Or it can send it into the hot water. We've used it for many years now to heat our hot water. Our hot water is essentially always hot and costs us almost nothing, because any excess solar goes to heat it. But then to make all these fellas talk to each other, your Zappy and your Eddy, there's Harvey. And that is an energy harvesting wireless sensor. It's basically, this thing's on the wall, it's got a load of lights on it. It knows where the electricity is coming from, it knows where to send it. It's what helps everything else work. So the Zappy works better because of the Harvey. The Eddy works better because of Harvey. Those 3 things, just brilliant. Just amazing stuff. You can find out loads more about My Energy on their webpage, and particularly these 3 things, worth having a look at. myenergy.com/products. Not hard to find. Even I found it, and I'm quite old and useless. My Energy is putting the I back into British innovation. My Energy is putting the I back into inventing the future. My Energy is putting the I back into inspiring a nation. Recharging the world with green, smart energy. Charge your EV with your PV and more. Visit myenergy.com and help to spark the green revolution. My Energy, driving the charge to a greener future. Fiona, thank you so much for coming on Fully Charged. Well, also because you've been on before, haven't you? That's the good thing. So it's a returning guest.
Absolutely, it's so nice to be here. It's always lovely.
I've joked because I thought about it this morning. First time was at a book festival, which was very noisy, and there were people slamming doors around. Second time we went for a walk during lockdown.
During lockdown, I
guess it would have been, wouldn't it? Or not lockdown, but in high level of.
It was when you were allowed to meet up for walks, basically.
Yes, you could meet up we could meet one other person for a walk, so we did.
It was lovely. I really enjoyed it. Yeah.
And now you're in Scotland.
I am,
and I'm at home, and you've got just to explain for the very few people who watch the Fully Charged Plus podcast, you've got a blue thing over your shoulder, which I thought was a traditional Scottish scarf of some sort, but it's actually a sling. I think I can pull it off.
Yeah, exactly. I like to say I've been fighting climate change, and I'm slightly injured. But the truth is, I had a skiing accident, and I was out enjoying the outdoors and the mountains, and thinking about EVs actually as I then.
You should have been focused on the skiing.
I should have been focused on the skiing, exactly. But I was too busy thinking about EVs and what we could do in this space to make it even better. And unfortunately, I fell and dislocated my shoulder.
I'm very glad it's better. It's better, but it is because I don't ever do skiing, but I know people who do, and all they ever show me is their injuries. So I just think I'm very happy I don't do it. But no, I had in my head that your role at Octopus was very EV focused, but have you shifted internally? Has there been a bit of management shifting?
Well, what has happened is in EVs within Octopus, there are so many opportunities and so many in such a kind of emerging market. There's so many ways in which we can help bring new products and services to market. So actually, there's a lot of other great people within the business that have taken on other bits.
Right.
So when I started out, it was like me, and then it was me and Charlie Cook, who you'll know, who's now the founder of Right Charge, who joined me for a bit and was great. But now my team really focus on kind of the leasing service and pulling it all together and making it as simple as possible, people that want to make that switch to EVs. Right. But actually there's a dedicated team that look after, say, the electric juice network. There's another team that look after EV charge point installs. So there's a Octopus Energy Services actually that have the field force that install smart meters. They'll also install heat pumps. They'll also install your charge points. And so they look after that element of it. And that's great because I don't have to be a specialist in everything. We've then got specialist teams that look after different bits. And I have the pleasure of putting it all together to make it easy for customers.
Right. So you get the big overview of what's going on.
I do. And actually, I'm lucky because in my world, I still get to look after things like Power Loop. So Claire Miller, who you've done a wonderful Fully Charged Plus episode.
That's right. Yeah, we did. Yes, she's fantastic. Yeah.
She's great. And so she's been looking after Power Loop, and that's our vehicle to grid projects. And so that still sits in my world as we've been kind of seeing that through, and now we've got that up and running. And there's actually now another team as well, Alex Schock, who joined us from Tesla, in fact. He's looking after flexibility now, and he's taking that on in terms of new energy tariffs for EV drivers and smart charging and so forth. So it's so fantastic to have such a great team around that are working on different bits. And then and my team have really focused in on things like salary sacrifice, which we talked about actually on our walk, where you can get your car as a benefit from work, and you can pay for it out of your gross salary. So you save income tax and national insurance, and our drivers are saving 30 to 40% every month. And you can even include in that your servicing and maintenance, your insurance. So it's all bundled in, and you get, if you've got a driveway, you can get a home charge point and 5,000 free miles on our Octopus Go tariff. Or if you don't have a driveway, then we give you 5,000 free miles on the electric juice network, which now has access to, I think, 200,000 charge points across Europe. So that's pretty exciting in terms of being able to do that whole piece.
Yeah, because that is, I've now had salary sacrifice explained to me enough times that I actually genuinely understand it. It's taken me some years, but I think partially because I've never had a proper job, and so it's that lack of experience. But now my daughter now has a proper job, and she's explained it to me because I can understand it. And yesterday she showed me her spreadsheet, which shows her income, her salary sacrifice, what benefits she gets. Right, I go, I get it now. I absolutely get it. Yes,
it's a fantastic option.
And has that been a success? I mean, have you had a good take up of that?
Yeah. So we launched it. Thank you for joining us. You joined us for our launch just over a year ago, and since then we've had over 1,000 businesses sign up.
Wow.
Which is
so
fantastic.
Not even 1,000 people, 1,000 businesses. So that represents a lot of people.
Yeah, it's 180,000 people.
Wow.
The employees in those businesses. So it's a phenomenal uptake. And actually you see, it means that employers have this amazing opportunity to help share information and education around EVs, right? So at the minute, if you go into your dealership, there might be like one or two brands. They may have one or two EVs. They may or may not have them available for test driving because there's not much supply of them at the minute, so you probably can't. Whereas what we can do is we can have a selection of them. We can bring them to your office, and then you can speak to experts in EVs specifically that can answer questions like, where do I charge? How much does it cost? Does the battery degrade? All those kind of questions that you ask when you first start learning about EVs. We do that at offices. And so the employer can help kind of facilitate that and can open up kind of clean transport for employees in a completely different way. And actually, whether or not people then take it on salary sacrifice or they get an EV in a different way, it's helping spread information and knowledge. And also, we can do test drives, and getting people behind the wheel of an EV is just fantastic.
Makes a big difference.
Makes a huge difference. It makes it very real, right? When you realize how good the cars have got. We've now got over 60 cars. I think it's 67 cars available from over 25 different manufacturers. Different models. Different models.
God, isn't that's extraordinary? I mean, go back doubled. 10 years, I think there might have been 3.
Well, yeah, when I started, it was 5. There was 5 that could do over 100 miles, basically. There was like 2 very expensive Teslas, the old Nissan Leaf, the Renault Zoe, and the BMW i3. So that was 5 years ago. Even last year, it was 30. So to be over 60, it doubled in the last year, that kind of availability and range of different cars, which is super exciting because it just gives so many different options. And actually, we've noticed some really interesting trends. So the beginning of last year, 40% of our car inquiries were the Tesla Model 3. So basically, Tesla Model 3 dominated. As you'd expect, it still is a fantastic EV, and it suits a very clear market segment. But now there's been so many other options. Even by the end of the year, the car inquiries for Tesla were down to 10%. And all these other brands have started taking market share, basically, of the inquiries. Interestingly, though, they couldn't deliver them at pace. Tesla still could. So by the end of the year, it was 50% of our December deliveries were Tesla Model 3.
Right.
So actually, even though their inquiries had gone down significantly, they were still delivering significant amounts.
They were shifting in. I mean, I heard 2 absolutely perfectly aligned anecdotal evidence from people at superchargers that come up and talk to me, and they said I'd ordered an Ionic 5 or Kia EV6. They really wanted them, and they just said it was 18 months. I had to wait 18 months, or I had to wait 6 months, and I went into Tesla and they said, "There's one there. Do you want it?" They got it straight away.
That's it. That's so true. And that's exactly what we see is that people come in and they say, actually, I'm looking for X car. And you share when the lead time is. And actually, we say these are available sooner, and they switch allegiances, basically. And so we see that people are not brand loyal in the same way they have been for decades. They are open to switching to different brands where there are EVs. So this brings me on to my new point, which is this year, there's been another shift. So the Tesla Model 3 having been such a dominating force for so long, in the first quarter of this year is 4th most popular car for us.
Wow.
3 other cars have picked them, one being the Tesla Model Y, so people are ordering the Tesla Model Y, and that only just beat the MG ZS. which I
Yes.
think is interesting because it's such an affordable EV, right? It's like,
Yeah.
and it's got good range and
Yeah.
people like it. And the Polestar was the third.
Oh, was it? Wow, that's interesting. Oh, well, I'm really glad because I think the Polestar is stunning. I mean, I
Yeah.
do, as a, because
And
I always, people always say, you know all about cars, Robert. And I go, no, seriously, I don't. But I do know, I mean, that one, when I first drove one and saw one, I went, oh, this, for someone who isn't a car aficionado, I noticed it and I said, this is
yeah.
really special and really nice car. Yeah.
Well,
That is very
it's
interesting.
brilliant.
Wow.
And so, yeah, the Model 3 slipped down below that in terms of popularity,
Yeah.
in terms of
Yeah.
orders for this first quarter. So I think that's really interesting to see this shift.
Yeah.
I mean, Tesla's still obviously very strong, and
Yeah.
particularly because they've got supply of vehicles, but particularly where you've got other manufacturers that are able to start supplying more, they're
Yes.
starting to kind of make inroads. I think actually on our walk, we talked about the Kodak moment.
Yes.
Where, if they,
That's right. Yeah.
otherwise they might have a Kodak moment where the incumbent car manufacturers, if they can't supply their cars quick enough, other people are going to eat their market share. And I think that's what we're seeing because the incumbents aren't there.
Yeah, I mean, the ones we're very aware of in the UK is obviously Tesla as a sort of new market entrant. But what is already happening in Norway is the perfect example, but Norway, Denmark, the Netherlands, which I'm certainly not aware of, is the Chinese cars that are coming into the market there are really having a big impact. I mean, the sales and not just the sales, but the support systems that the Chinese have built in Norway in particular. So the sales and the servicing and the support and the network support and the charging and how you do charging and all that stuff, they're pushing those boundaries really quickly, and a major challenge to the traditional European car makers,
and
which we haven't really seen here yet, but we will see it in the next year or so.
I completely agree. And I think we've been saying that for a little while, haven't we? Kind of watching that trend and waiting for them to enter. And I think they've got supply and they've got a lot more control of their supply chain, some of the Chinese manufacturers as well, including things like the chips, all the way through to the batteries and their own battery designs and manufacturing, through to the vehicle assembly and supply. And fascinating on the charging. Do you have any that you've been watching for?
Well, we've got a show coming out soon which does a comparison, which is very interesting actually, a comparison between induction charging in Oslo. Where have they got functioning induction charging on the street? They've got it in Oslo. So there's a whole fleet of taxis that never plug in and have now done hundreds of thousands of miles of driving without ever plugging in. They just park. And they've got specific parking places or waiting places at airports, hotels, on the specific bits of the city, and they just park there and they're charging at rapid charge rates, not slowly, fast.
Yeah.
And so that's one aspect. And the other one was NIO, which is a Chinese company, have built battery swap stations in Norway. Yeah. And so our new presenter, Molly, has drove a NIO to swap the battery. It takes about 5 minutes. It's not like 30 seconds. It's about 5 minutes. But then you think, well, that's how long you'd spend refilling a tank. But you can go from a battery that would only take you another mile to 100% full in 5 minutes.
In 5 minutes. What do you make of that?
And you don't buy it, because often I've thought, when I first heard that, I went, well, if I've paid all this money for my perfect battery and then they swap in a rubbish old one, no, you don't buy the battery. That's their battery. They look after the batteries. So that isn't your problem. It's not, you don't ever buy it. But that is in a very high-end car. It's not. It's in a sort of the equivalent of an electric Range Rover. It's not a cheap car in the first place.
There's a battery swapping service, actually, that's been, I'm not sure if they've had their Series C round or the Series D out in the US, actually, called Ample.
Ah, right.
And actually, so they they have basically a pod that you can put into a couple of parking spaces. And they're doing it with Uber, I think, actually. I think it's in San Francisco. And they've got 2 or 3 mainstream kind of incumbent OEMs signed up. And they've got this battery swapping service. And what's interesting for that is that, with rapid charging is very expensive, right? And a lot of the costs associated are things like putting in the huge energy connection to go to that rapid charger, because actually they want very high speed energy on demand, right? High capacity. And in addition to that, the kit is really expensive. So if you can get around the fact of having a really high speed energy connection and very expensive charging kit, replace that with a bank of batteries charging
that can
slowly,
charge slowly.
actually it can be much more affordable. And interestingly, the kind of economics stack up that you don't have to then lease that space for like 15 years or whatever that you do have to do in rapid charging. Actually, it's much easier. You can just put down one of those pods for a couple of years, and then you can move the pod. So that's the kind of technology they're looking at, which I imagine is quite similar to the kind of Neo battery swap stations as well that you're seeing as well. So I think it's fascinating because I think we'd all written off the battery swapping.
No, I definitely had. Yeah. Well, there was Better Place, wasn't there, which sort of emerged in the 10 years ago or so and just didn't make it. And I think also the fact that I think Neo have now passed 4 million battery swaps in China, i.e., the technology is well embedded and functions. You know, it's not like they've done. We did 15 swaps on a recent drive with they've done 4 million. They've changed the battery 4 million times in various cars. Or I think there's one specific route between Shanghai and Beijing that has them all the way along there, so you can do it.
Amazing.
Which that's going to be the same as that. There's going to be no difference if that was ubiquitous. There'd be no difference between driving in a petrol car like across the United States now. In time terms, you stop for 5 minutes and you can drive another 300 miles. Well, that's what,
Yeah.
And that's one of the things, I don't know, I just read that recently, was what is the range on, it was a specific, I think it was a Chevy Tahoe. It was a specific car that I'd heard of in America. Petrol car. What is the range? I went, no one's ever said it's 212 miles on a tank. 212 miles. Because I thought it was 5, everything. So you can get an Audi diesel. Yeah. So I don't know what estate car that will do 500 miles on a tank.
Yeah.
But there's a hell of a lot of big, heavy SUVs that do nowhere near. I mean, a Range Rover Sport's about 250 miles on a tank.
Yeah.
And that is now about 140 pounds.
Yeah. Well,
fill that.
So much. It's fascinating, actually. So I get asked quite a lot as to things like, are the petrol price increases impacting what we're seeing on EVs? Yeah. And actually, definitely, what happens is petrol price increases, and also the petrol challenges that you saw in September last year, when there were all the queues at petrol stations, that had the same impact, right? That basically people go, actually, maybe I will look into EVs now. Maybe EVs are more exciting. What happens actually, though, is people before the petrol price increase were saving about 90% on their fuel by switching to, say, an overnight tariff like Octopus Go. Yeah. And now, even with the price increases, guess what? They're still saving about 90%.
Really? That is interesting. Because the price of the fuel's gone up so much. Because
the fuel's gone up so much, and the overnight energy prices haven't gone up significantly. And it's just so cheap compared to the petrol prices, right? Yeah. So I think it's like £12 a month on average, compared to well over £100 a month for your petrol, your typical petrol prices. I was doing some analysis, actually. A really good one to look at was the MG ZS, because they have an electric version, but they also have a petrol version. Yeah. So that was quite an interesting one to do the comparison. So people are saving, over £1,000 on their fuel by switching to electric, even after the price increases.
Yeah. So that is, yes, that's very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. But what it's done is it's made people look. It's made people investigate it, and then they go, "Oh, that's amazing." And you go, and are there different cars? Yeah, there's over 60 to choose from, and so we've seen conversion rates are going up, and people, even more excited. So now it's just back to the supply again.
Yeah, which is going to be, I think, not a short-term challenge, is it? Because I think, there's certainly there are aspects of it where it was definitely, the fire in a chip factory in Taiwan a couple of years ago, that the knock-on effects of that have, there was a great story of, I believe it was BMW bought a load of microwave cookers. And it was only because it came up on some sort of inventory of who's buying. Why have they bought 1,000 microwave cookers? Why have they been delivered? And they very gently took out a specific chip, used it in the car, but they've kept the cookers, because as soon as the chips come back, they're going to put them in and sell them. There's nothing wrong with the cookers. Yeah,
great.
Which I don't know how true that story is. I've heard a couple of times. I've been sent links to not the most reputable news sites with that story, and so I don't know. But I mean, I would imagine stuff like that has happened. That it's not impossible.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I mean, it's certainly going to be a while I've just inquired very casually through the leasing company I lease my car from about replacing. I've got a Tesla Model 3, replacing, how long I might have to wait. And I'm going to keep the one I've got.
Interesting.
It's,
I mean, actually, so Teslas are starting to show more supply challenges than we've seen before, but they're still
I think so now.
Within reasonable timings. And actually, you can still, we're still able to work with them to kind of plan our orders, if that makes sense. So what we've been doing is we've been working with car manufacturers, say, do you know what? We expect that we're going to have X hundred customers wanting this car. Can we pre-order that with you right now?
Right.
So that we have got that available here in the UK. Because that's the other thing. There's do they bring them to the UK? Do they take them to other places? Like how many right-hand drive ones do they make, etc. And so for as much as possible, we are working with the car manufacturers to say, we're going to take this amount. Please make sure you make that, make this amount and give them to us so that our customers in the UK here can have these cars in a reasonable time frame. Because I think it's really important, because as well as people saying, oh, right, that car's going to take 6 months or longer, 12 months, 18 months in some cases. If they then can't find an EV that they want, they will take a petrol diesel vehicle, which is, of course, what we don't want to get to, when actually their first choice would have been an EV. So we're doing everything we can to try and get that supply of vehicles through. And actually, we're testing an interim model as well. So if you're waiting for your car, maybe we've got some Polestars. Maybe it's not your first choice, but you can have a Polestar for 6 months until your next your EV of choice turns up. Or
if you were and say you were going to you were hoping to get a vehicle that was cheaper than the Polestar, would you when you've got the Polestar from you, would you be paying a slightly reduced lease than you might for an actual Polestar?
We've got different options. So it's not just Polestars, for example, that we've got in that. So there's different options. So there might be a lower cost one. If you're looking for a lower cost EV, we'd have a lower cost interim version for you, that kind of stuff. It's trying to find other solutions to overcome the supply challenges.
Anything but petrol or diesel.
Well, that's as much as we can kind of help that supply chain, and help our customers make that transition. And do I love some of the other innovations in charging. I know we've kind of steered away from charging, but coming back to this.
I want to talk about charging.
No, I'm really excited about some of the community charging that's popping up. So things like Co-Charger, Just Park, and being able to find ways for us to use local low-cost charging to support people that don't have driveways. So curbside as well, curbside, lamppost charging, all of that kind of charging innovation, but also just being able to share driveways. So, the kind of Airbnb of your driveway and EV charger, and being able to share that. If you can do that and share that with your neighbours, that's going to be much lower cost for them and much better for the environment than having to put in place these super rapid chargers.
And also, if it's sort of, frictionless, so that, my bloke who lives down the road from me, who's got an electric car, but he can't charge it at home, can come here, plug it. Because I would put a socket in my driveway so that at the moment, the only sockets I've got are in a garage where our cars are. So that would be a bit of a pain. But I'd put one on, on a post. But if he paid for that electricity and I got compensated for it, I don't want to make money out of it. But if it was frictionless, which is, I'm assuming, what these systems are.
Yeah, exactly that.
Then I'm covered for the cost of that electricity. He pays for it to them. I do nothing. I don't have to give him an invoice.
For example, let's say I was away for a weekend, and let's say I happened to be in a accommodation down the road, and I saw this on a map as well for me to be able to use. Actually, if I knew that I could turn up, park on your driveway, I probably wouldn't stop to charge on the way. Could do that. It'd be lower cost. And again, you could probably do it when it's greenest and when it's cheapest.
Yeah, we'd do it overnight, wouldn't you, generally?
Exactly. So I'm very excited about that. And even think people like schools that are actually they could do the same, because they're not using those driveways or those car parks overnight, or offices where they can also use their car parks overnight. For example, starting to look at other community car parks. Actually, they've got the option to be able to do that. So if you imagine Uber drivers, I think something like 80% of Uber drivers don't have driveways. No. Obviously, Uber and lots of cities would like Uber drivers to be in EVs, clean and green. but there's a big challenge there. So I think, people like TfL have been trying to solve this problem for like, how do they put in lots of rapid chargers and manage these sites? But actually, if those Uber drivers can charge up overnight, many of
Yeah.
them don't go over 200 miles a day. And,
Yeah. Yeah.
the average mileage now, the average range in an EV is 250 miles, right? So even those Uber drivers could be borrowing neighbors' driveways and getting lower cost charging than they would do if it was a rapid charger again.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
really like this idea of actually let's seek out and support putting in infrastructure into these kind of shared facilities, rather than if you don't have a driveway, you have to use this expensive rapid, which I don't think
Yes.
is necessarily the default answer.
No. Well, in a sense, it is using the old method of refueling a vehicle. Because I've been to
exactly that.
I've been to the new Shell recharging hub in Fulham in West London.
Yeah.
And it's great because I just drove down there and I went, there it is. Oh my God. I pulled in, I drive
It
in.
looks gorgeous as well.
Oh, it looks great. Plug in,
Yeah.
tap your card on. It 100% works. And if it doesn't work, there's staff there to sort it out for you.
Yeah.
And then you go in, you get a coffee and there's a little shop there and there's a loo and there's Wi-Fi. And I thought, that is a huge improvement when you're on a long journey. But actually, this is in real dense urban area. And interestingly, hundreds of electric cars on the streets all around there who suddenly go, don't need to worry about it, I can charge there. But actually,
very expensive.
We all know from experience of driving these cars that the slower and cheaper you can charge them, the better.
Yeah.
And that I know that Uber, for example, have just invested to put in 400 street chargers in North and West London for Uber drivers, but anyone can use them. And Wonderful. It's those sort of solutions where but it is that and I argued for this in Parliament very badly when I was in front of the parliamentary committee. I'm never going to be invited back.
I don't believe it.
I haven't been yet. But anyway, I was saying, because I just wanted to say to them, the people there that didn't drive electric cars, you don't use a car for 90% of the time.
Yeah.
That's the time to charge it.
Absolutely.
And you need a huge amount of very cheap, low power chargers everywhere you possibly can put them. Every car park, every space that a car sits and wastes the space, at least be charging it.
I think you can put in place, for the average kind of cost of a rapid, you can put in place, I think, 50 home chargers or 25 lamppost chargers or something like this. So actually you can get significantly more lamppost chargers in, or other like shared chargers. And actually the cost of the electricity through them is also lower cost because you're not paying for this kind of high capacity.
The big capacity.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's fascinating as well. And it also enables us to support those people that don't have driveways and give them options of lower cost charging. Interestingly, I find it interesting that it's the kind of Shell. I think there's oil and gas companies where they are looking at their kind of standard petrol station revenues and they make money out of the things, the petrol and the diesel. They also make money out of other things that they sell on site at those petrol stations. And so they're like, how do we make sure that we still get people back to these locations? And actually they're all driving around, a lot of them in their petrol and diesels. And they're like, of course, when people switch out the EV, they'll come to our station to charge, But actually it's a different mindset. I think that's what we're seeing is that when you get in a car, it's just a different mindset. One of the analogies I've started to play with, I'll see what you think of this, is that it's like Wi-Fi. So at home and at work, I have low cost, reliable Wi-Fi. Sometimes when I go out, maybe at Starbucks or another kind of cafe or a leisure centre or something, I might get free Wi-Fi because they want to incentivize me to go there, or that's part of their service. Hotels, for example. And then sometimes when I really need it, I will pay through the nose for convenient fast Wi-Fi, maybe on a train or on a plane. But I will only do the absolute minimum, right? To be able to connect, probably download my emails, connect or do essential things. And if I don't have to, then I probably won't have to. And I won't pay through the nose to get that. So the kind of the rapid charging for me is like that airline, that airport, plane Wi-Fi, which is convenient, but very expensive.
But very expensive,
And I think that's what we'll see. And if work are paying for it, right? So obviously there's fleets. There are fleets that definitely need very efficient and effective charging when they're out and about, if they're not on a kind of set route. And actually, where it's kind of good for their utilization and good for their economics, they're probably going to be more willing to pay for it than like us as consumers that probably will take our, bags for life now rather than paying 5p for a plastic bag. And we will adjust our behaviours to do it, right?
But I do love the fact that a shopping bag, I grew up with my mum's, I'd take my mum's shopping bag down to the shop to buy things, and I come back with it. No one called that a bag for life. It was just a bag.
Exactly.
But I'm old enough to remember the days before they would give you a free plastic bag, which didn't happen then. But then, so here's a couple of things.
Yeah.
One, so there's 3 supermarkets within 20 miles of where I live, where we regularly shop, that have, it's usually 4, sometimes 6 low power charge points that you plug in while you're shopping, and they're free. Great. And they're either, one of them is 22 kilowatts, but the rest are all 7 kilowatts. And what's annoying now is I used to love that 22 kilowatt. I thought no one else knew that was there. I'd always go to that shop as a co-op, and I'd go to that shop and plug into the 22 kilowatt, because in the time I did the shopping, it would add more miles than it took me to go there and back. So I'd come back home with like 5 miles more range than when I left to go shopping. Brilliant. Result. Now, I've never been to that shop now, and there isn't someone plugged into the damn 20, because the word has spread. It's a 22 kilowatt. Yeah. But anyway, that aside, so recently I went to...
Is it changing your behaviour? Are you stopping going back to that co-op?
I have gone to it less. It's true.
So actually, we should encourage that co-op to put in some more 22 kilowatts.
Oh, God, yeah. Because 22 kilowatts, 7 kilowatts, you might add 8 miles, 10 miles when you're shopping.
Yeah.
On the 22 kilowatt, I'd add 24, 26, 30 miles. I go, bloody hell, that's got 30 miles more. Well, it's only 10.
You're a much quicker shopper than me. I always get distracted.
Yeah, I don't hang around. But that definitely, because I know the manageress of the co-op, her kids went to the same school as mine. So if she's there, we'll have a natter. We'll have a bit of a catch up. How's he doing then in his new job? Oh, he's going on that nice. How's the hubby? Is he still got his knee? Is he still with the knee? Oh, no. A bit of a natter. So that adds another 4 miles to my range while I'm having a chat
at least. Yeah, definitely.
But no, here's the flip side of that is I just went on the way home the other day. I had to get past, I had a list texted to me. It just happens. So I had to get pasta and something. I can't remember what it was. So I pulled into I'm not going to advertise them, an upmarket supermarket in a very posh town in Cirencester. And I drove in, and I've been there before, but I don't go there often. It's, I wouldn't go there to go shopping. It's too far from here. And I pulled in, and I went, oh my God, they put chargers in. How fantastic, because they hadn't got them. And there's a rapid charger. Wow, rapid charger and a row of chargers. So I didn't need to charge. So I parked somewhere else and then went and looked at them after I'd been shopping. You have to pay. You have to have the app. It's a hassle. Although for the rapid charger, that's completely different.
And
that was being used. But then the little sockets on things, I went, well, I don't want to pay. Well, I don't even mind. It's not even the paying. I don't want to think about it. I just want to plug the bloody thing in while I'm shopping and unplug it and leave. I think that is. So I bet
it's the same. It's the same.
Well, sorry, just very quickly. I've written a letter to the manager.
Great.
I think is true. Really polite. Just explaining that situation and how I think that someone like me quite happy to pay.
Yeah.
And if there was a way that it could just be added to my shopping bill, I don't care. It's not the money; it's the hassle. I'd never heard of this wretched system that I had to download yet another bloody app to be able to pay for that electricity.
Send us the details, and we'll have a chat about electric juice.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Let's do that.
Good.
See if we can get it. And then if you had your electric juice card, then you could tap and go.
I'll get my bloody electric juice card. I'm in a bit of a ranty mood at the moment about public charging. I haven't got one, no.
Oh, Robert, we should get you one.
No, I don't. I want to get one legitimately. I don't want to. I'll work it out. We'll talk about it offline.
Offline.
But I want you to plug electric juice bigly. I'm not trying to stop that, but I'm embarrassed because But my thing is, which is the other thing I said in Parliament, lots of small low power chargers, and the other one is I want to drive up to a charger like I go and get a bag of crisps. I don't want to join anyone's club. I don't want to download an app. I don't want to talk to anyone or be a member. I don't want to give anyone my data. I want to pay for the crisps and leave. And that's how I want my rapid charging. I want to tap it. And I have to say that wretched Shell, that works when you use their chargers.
I agree.
It's so annoying.
On my way up to COP, I did the EV road trip. We were with the Global EV Alliance, all the EV associations, like EV Association England and Scotland. And it was fantastic. It was great. We got to see My Energy. I really enjoyed going to visit the My Energy location.
No, I wish I could have done that trip. I couldn't do it. It's so annoying. Yeah.
But I did exactly that with Shell in that I'd pulled over and I had to chat to my team. We had a regular standing call and I wanted to dial in. I pulled in and there happened to be this row of rapid chargers, and I pulled up, plugged in, tapped my card, done. Actually, Instavolt was similar as well when I've used them on the way down to Cornwall. Amazing.
They always work. Yeah.
Very good. And actually it was super quick and I dialed into my call. It was just very efficient. So that's been really good. But the electric juice network is similar but has integrated across 10 plus different networks now.
Right.
Including like Osprey, Shell New Motion and a bunch of other ones. There's a Chargy, Plug and Go.
Right.
Anyway, and therefore it means that you get the same kind of level of tap and go, but it also goes into the same bill. Well, some of the things that we found with some of the other ones where you have to like top up and then you don't really know how much you spent and all this kind of stuff.
There's companies that I've got probably some hundreds of pounds with various companies. And I don't use chargers that often, so it's incrly that sounds like a much better solution.
I can charge at home. I'm the same, and so I don't really know who I've topped up with, who I haven't, and all that kind of stuff. So this is one single card, one bill, all of the transactions on the one bill. You can see it, and in fact, you can even link it to your home energy bill if you're with Octopus Energy. Right. So you can have your Octopus Go tariff at home on the same bill as you're using these public chargers, and it's all itemized.
Okay, I will get my Octopus Juice card. I promise to apply for one immediately, because it is a physical card then that you just tap on the card reader.
There's an app as well. There's an app, and recently just launched some new features around route planning as well to help you plan your route across the chargers and stuff.
Right, I might lower myself and get your app. Even though I've got so many apps. I've actually had a young person show me how to put a lot of apps into one little box on my phone.
I feel like we should,
because I'd spend hours scrolling through to find the damn app when I was at the charger. It was just
there's a lot of different networks, and I think I think we'll see them simplify.
They've got to.
Yeah,
I mean, that's the thing is that as an old timer. I'm barely at an advantage. I should know how to do all that. I'm constantly baffled by a new charger, and I go, "What have I got to do now? What do you want from me now? Here's my home address. Here's my bank account number. Here's my credit card. Take everything. Just give me some electricity, you swines." So that is yes. I mean, anything that simplifies that, because I think it's essential for people who, have just got electric cars. I helped a lovely old man who was even older than me unplug his MG just recently at a charger because he didn't know why he couldn't pull the wire out and it was locked in and I couldn't understand it. What actually happened is he'd left the car on, the ignition was on.
Okay.
And it took me a minute to work out there's something not right here. I don't think it's the charger. I think it's the gentleman, and he was so lovely.
Great, good so grateful. The community helping.
Yeah, no, I can occasionally be helpful. Very rarely I can be helpful too.
Oh, I love the fact that you did that. That's great. Well, on the community charging that we were talking about earlier, actually, we've got Just Park integrated with the electric juice network as well.
Electric juice, wow!
So you never know that maybe you could have. I
do need to do an electric juice road trip.
Yes.
To show and use every single variety of the.
That's it, because the charging and the curbside charging as well is integrated with it. So there's lots of different types.
Yeah. But the other topic I want to make sure that we cover, because when I spoke to Greg Jackson from Octopus, who is just basically a walking brain. That's how I see him.
He's so smart.
He's very smart. But he did mention vehicle to grid and vehicle to home and vehicle to all that stuff. And I thought, well, I'd love to talk to you about it, but I know that's not your specific area. But just let me quickly say this observation, which we saw in Utrecht in the Netherlands, which was literally charging posts on the street. So just quite a discreet little post on the street. You plug a car into that. That's a bi-directional Type 2 charging system.
Yeah,
So
great.
it charges the car, but also it can. Now, this is specifically for a car sharing scheme, but it's a car sharing scheme, the likes of which we haven't got. Huge,
yet.
Very ubiquitous, all over the city.
We're starting to see some more car sharing, which I'm quite excited about. Particularly with the shortage of EVs, if we could share them, then it means that we can do more electric miles, right?
Yeah, and we talked to some posh Dutch people who had posh cars and have got rid of them because using this scheme is better, not because it's virtue signaling or more eco, and they don't care about that. They want no, it's much better. We always know we can get a car. We know it's always charged. We can book one with car seats for the kids. All those they kind of work that system out. But what was interesting was the vehicle. The bit that obsessed me was the vehicle to grid aspect of it.
Yeah,
that's on a sort of controllable grid scale level. The company operating those cars can say, "We'll take 2 kilowatt hours out of 600 cars."
Yeah. Well, so
suddenly that starts to be a generator. Suddenly that's a thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So we've now got over 130 cars in the UK on people's driveways doing vehicle to grid.
Right.
So as part of the Power Loop project. So there's now, they're all Nissan Leafs because that's the ones that could do.
Because that's the only one, isn't it? Because just very quickly. So for listeners, that the cars that they were using were Renault Zoes and Ioniq 5s, Hyundai Ioniq 5s, that the companies had retrofitted to do bi-directional charging Type 2. So it wasn't CHAdeMO. But that's not normally available. It's important to make that clear. So it's CHAdeMO with the Leaf.
I understand.
It's possible to do with any car.
Ioniq 5 can, do this vehicle to load, so it can't necessarily do some of the grid parts of it. So,
but they've adapted it so it does. So it can take it's 7 kilowatts. You can take 7 kilowatts out of the car. It's not more than that. But
and I think we're seeing a lot of announcements now of people making their cars more available for vehicle to grid. So I think we're going to see a lot more coming to market in the next year.
Definitely,
that will have that, which I think, amazingly, somebody predicted 2023 to me about 3 years ago. And actually, it's going to be pretty much around about the end of 2022, 2023 that we'll see these CCS vehicles start to be more vehicle to grid ready, V2G ready. Right. Which is great. I'm very excited about. But it does mean that the ones that we've got running with the CHAdeMO, the Nissan Leafs, and using these kind of bi-directional chargers that we've got in place, we're now working with National Grid so that those cars can participate in what's called the balancing mechanism.
Right.
So the balancing mechanism, if you imagine the energy system, we need to make the generation match the supply. And so the job of the system operator in National Grid is basically to have a look at what they think we're all going to be using in terms of energy at any time and see what energy is being produced and coming onto the grid and actually manage that and say, actually, they might have some standby hydropower in Wales that they might say, okay, actually, we need some more electricity at that moment. Can you, switch on? Or actually, there are times when we say, wind turbines, we don't need your wind power in the middle of the night. Can you actually not produce and switch off your wind turbines, basically?
Right.
And they're kind of doing that. But one of the things they can now do to us is say, okay, Octopus, can you give us electricity from your EVs? And so we can aggregate across those 130 EVs and then give it back to the energy system to help them balance out the energy system.
Yeah.
And so that's just a kind of snippet of what we can do at massive scale. So, I think National Grid have estimated we might have up to 14 million EVs on the road by 2030.
Right.
So even with 10 million doing your 7 kilowatts, that can actually supply the whole of the UK.
That can run the country.
That can run the country at peak demand in a day. So there could be no wind, there could be no solar, no nuclear, nothing. Yeah. And you could just get all the electricity you needed at that point from the cars that will be on the road already by 2030, which isn't that far away. So it's so exciting. It's so exciting. One of the things,
I think it's worth mentioning that now that really all the research that I've heard about and the car companies themselves and the battery manufacturers are saying it's not going to shorten the life of the battery doing that.
Or if anything, it helps condition it.
It can help condition it. It's exactly the opposite.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So in fact, Claire, if she was here, she'd tell you she's had this Nissan Leaf running at her house on this vehicle to grid charger. She's got this this amazing, I feel like it's a kind of demo house in Suffolk with heat pumps and vehicle to grid chargers and all this kind of latest home tech. I love it. But anyway, she had this Nissan Leaf where she took it in for testing in terms of the battery condition, and it kept on outperforming consistently in all the tests after it had been doing all this vehicle to grid.
Wow.
So
Wow.
really very positive to see the results of that and how good it is for the battery. And I think that's what we've been informed by experts, but it's still really reassuring to see it come through in the results.
And actually in the results,
No, so it's great. So we're very excited, and of course you get a huge amount of benefit just with smart charging. And there are great companies that we've been working with, like Omi, who have got amazing smart charging technology that integrate with our tariffs. And we've got tariffs that kind of indicate when it's cheap and when it's green and so forth. So that's made it. That's all of these things coming together makes me quite excited for the future of smart energy. Well,
I think it's a really critical discussion point for people. Outside all the sort of the pros and cons of electric vehicles is, I've always wanted to push the fact that they're not just like a different sort of car. It's a completely different technology that could have a really important different role. Because if you had, 1,000 petrol cars in the city centre ticking over with a generator on them, supplying electricity, it's not the same. Wouldn't have quite the same benefits.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. One of the things that somebody said to me the other day, they were like, fighting climate change shouldn't be all this negative stuff around like things that you need to sacrifice. Actually, it's a shame with salary sacrifice, it's got that phrase in it, but it shouldn't be like stuff you have to switch off, stuff you have to stop doing. It should be like having a party powered by solar with all the lights, like solar powered party. And I was like, we should do that. So we are currently working on a solar powered party where we will store the energy in a car to power the party. V to P, vehicle to party.
Vehicle to party would be very popular. Yeah, because I've done V to C, so vehicle to conference in the Netherlands. There was a conference, and there were 6 Nissan Leafs parked at either side of where the audience was sitting.
Great.
And that was good. And it was in an old warehouse in Amsterdam, which did have power, but not enough to do what they had. Big light shows, and it was effectively it was vehicle to party / conference. Well, I just loved that, and I said, I want to do that. But I mean, that stuff is what's so frustrating with it is possible, absolutely technically possible, but it isn't. Possible. It's not yet super easy. There isn't a thing that you just bring in a couple of those things, you plug into that, and it all works. They had to kind of botch it together a bit.
I think there's an element of the kind of creation of it. But I think there are more cars available that make it possible.
Oh, so, God, yeah.
It's. I love that concept, and so you'll have to come and join us and party with us.
I'm looking forward to my
powered by the sun.
But then the one last thing I just want to quickly mention is this is a bit of research I read, like proper PR research, which was the TV commercial in the United States for the Ford F-150 pickup truck.
Yeah,
and that had all the cliches that you would expect in a TV commercial for a pickup truck in America. Butch guy driving it, and he skids up a dirt track, and it's throwing mud up out the back, and he's a good-looking man driving this thing. It then cuts to a mixed-race woman driving along a suburban street, which shows that it can also do that. And she's all lovely, and she's driving along in this huge, ridiculously enormous vehicle. And then you see a shot of a guy arriving at his house, his lovely suburban house, and it's got solar panels on the roof, very clearly done that. He drives into the garage. He gets out. You see him plug it in.
Great.
Walks into his house, and he's there with his wife. And then the lights, you get a wide shot, all the city lights in the background go off, and his lights go off in his house. And he goes, gets out his phone, flip, does a thing on an app, choom, all his lights come back on because it's powered by the car, which is, it was good. That is what they said sold them 100,000 vehicles. Not the off-roading, not the butchness, not the fact that it can do. It showed it towing huge trailers, all those things that it can do, going through water, all that stuff. It was the fact that you could run your house off your car was the thing that people went, I want that.
Yeah.
I want my freedom.
Well, energy security, energy independence.
Yes. Well, particularly after what happened even just very specifically what happened in Texas last winter, when they lost their power. If you had an F-150, you would have been able to stay warm for a couple of days,
I believe this is how they sell EVs mostly in Japan in terms of energy.
Yes. Well, that's why the Nissan can do that, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, the Nissan can do it. And that's actually one of their biggest selling points was this energy independence because of the earthquakes that they've had. And they've had the same kind of challenges with, taking out a lot of energy, and the need for it actually in emergency situations. I think they used quite a few Nissan Leafs to help in emergency situations after the earthquakes, to support medical centres and things like that, which was fantastic.
Well, the other peculiar aspect of that is Britwind, which is a company that makes small wind turbines in Stroud in Gloucestershire, sort of 10 to 15 kilowatts, so for farms. And they have sold some. They have sold them here. They've sold a few here, but they've sold thousands to Japan. Japanese farmers all buy them. So we're exporting British-made technology in containers that goes to Japan, and there are thousands of Britwind generators all over it's specifically because of that, because all the farmers lost their power. It was huge problems when Fukushima did a bit of a wobbly.
Well, I think it's exciting.
No, it is. I mean, I think we can both agree, and I hope we've communicated that to our lovely listeners, that the future is not all doom and gloom. There are absolutely many bright points of light. Yeah,
absolutely. And there's so many solutions. And I mean, I think your Stop Burning Stuff episode as well last year was so amazing to kind of showcase existing technology. That's the point, isn't it? Right? Which is like, actually there's solutions today, and it's great.
It's
such a pleasure chatting with you.
No, it's brilliant. Thank you, Fiona. Thank you so much, and I hope your arm gets better very quickly.
Thank you very much.
And you're all yes, and it was lovely to see you. I'm going to apply for my Octopus juice card and get the app, and I will hopefully get an invitation to the solar party.
Solar powered party, exactly. And we will see you.
V2P is great.
Can't wait for Fully Charged Live.
And Fully Charged Live. Yeah, I mean, this may go out after Fully Charged Live.
It may go out. Hopefully, we'll have seen all of these amazing listeners Fully Charged Live.
Yeah, it was great to see you at Fully Charged Live. I'll say that as well.
It was great to cover
all bases. All right, thank you so much.
Take care. Bye.
Well, I really hope you enjoyed that. I think it's fascinating. It's discussions like that, only slightly more formalised and slightly more structured, are other sort of things that happen at our live events. And I know our live event in Amsterdam in the middle of May is going to be very exciting. And then later this year in San Diego, California, Fully Charged Live USA. Both those shows are going to be amazing, not only exhibits of incredible technology and amazing electric vehicles, but also incredibly bright people who really understand the energy transition and the new energy landscape that we're all still learning about, still developing. It's changing, it's developing, it's incredible. Very exciting. Anyway, that's it. Do subscribe to this podcast if you haven't already. You can do it on your podcast app or on YouTube or whatever. It's really worth doing that. And I mean, well, the thing I always want to ask people is to tell their mates about it. That's how I've learned about a lot of podcasts that I now really enjoy, is from hearing other people say, oh, have you heard? And we know that happens with this because our numbers are going up. So it's really good. We're very lucky. But just a reminder, friends, family, neighbours, and anyone else you're passing in the street, just walk down the street and go, hey, do you listen to the Fully Charged Plus podcast? Brilliant. That's it. Have a look at the Patreon link if you want to. All the links are in the show notes for this episode. But as always, if you have been, thank you for listening.